But up, there we are, everyone. Welcome to episode 50 of Everything Teams Phone Live. It's a special episode, and rightfully so, because we have two very special guests on today and one very absent co-host. So, with that said, let's talk about the lineup. And I'm super excited about who's with us today because on our invite, we sent out, we said we're going to do a full-on demo. And what we mean by a full-on Teams demo is we're going to show you the admin center, the TAC, the technical admin center, or the admin center for Microsoft, the Teams admin center. Whew, messed it up there for a second. And I had to recover there. And we're going to show you the end user experience, which is very important. If you don't use Teams Phone today and you want to understand what it looks like, what features you could expect, how to use it in scenarios, we are going to show you that. Now, one of my guests is only going to be here for a half hour, and I'll let her talk about that. But let's introduce our Everything Teams Phone Live, episode 50. Guess this is a milestone episode. Brandon Bradley, by the way, is out. He is traveling for the next 2 weeks. So next week, you'll see another guest host. So thank you very much, Doug Klein from Microsoft. Join us, Doug. Yeah. Welcome to the co-host seat, Doug.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm excited. I feel like I got a little promotion on the podcast this week. So, I'll try not to let it go to my head if it already hasn't. So
you're not fitting through the doors next time.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it should.
That's right. That's right. And we have Carmen Carmen, why don't you just introduce yourself, Carmen?
I'm Rick Savannah. So he's going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to point out the letters and the features and all of that stuff. I'm only here for half an hour because I do have a full-time job, and I have to go do it. So I'm going to kind of go over the Teams client, and I'm not going to go over some of the boring stuff like here's the dial pad and stuff, but just some of the fun stuff in it that maybe you don't know we can do.
That is exciting. Cool. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here. This is going to be very fun. Okay. Well, as promised, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let Carmen go first, and we're going to walk through what Teams looks like as a phone system, because everybody wants to know. We obviously, Doug, the all new Gartner reports out, and I think there's a whole new Forrester report out, and it talks about the amazing things you can accomplish with Microsoft Teams as your phone system from a productivity perspective. And then Carmen even knows, as she's noted, she uses the negative pieces of what's lacking in Teams as a discussion point when she's working with customers to show what that looks like and how it's actually not a negative and how it's sometimes inaccurate. So let's start with that. Carmen, the end user experience, can you show us what is important in that space? Because we need to know how to use it. How does it make a difference to my business? If I'm a business owner, how does it make a difference to me? And how's my team going to use it, Carmen?
I am going to show you. I'm sharing my screen now.
All right. I like this episode. This is a show and tell episode. This is let's just get started and go.
All right, there we go. I had to click a couple buttons. So, can you guys see my screen?
I don't see it yet.
Yet, I'm going to bring it to the stage now. There you go.
All right. So, what we're looking at is this is my Teams client. This is my production client. So, this is the one I use every day. You see the standard stuff here on the side. Notice there's a little texting icon here. So mine is SMS enabled. So if I have clients that want to text me or people that I work with, I get a lot of texts from people. I want to show you some of the things that I think are very cool that you can't really understand until you can see it. So I'm going to pretend to make a call. So I'm going to pick Rick Garcia, but I have a little drop down here. I could call as myself. I could call as two of my coworkers, Aaron and Lindsay, who I support, or I could call from G12's sales automated attendant. So like my sales queue, I can call from there. So I can pick my caller ID when I'm calling out. So think attorneys and paralegals, think executives and executive assistants, think county commissioners and clerks that support them. So think about that type of relationship that you can make and take calls on people's behalf. Not
Yeah.
going to call because that would just put you guys on hold while I made a phone call.
Let's
I'm
not do
going to
that.
bring up another scenario too. And this actually happened to me. So a law firm, a very, very high dollar New York City law firm, had clients in London and San Francisco. And their lawyers wanted to have a local number when they were calling those clients. They didn't want their clients seeing a New York number. They wanted the clients to feel like they were getting a local number. So just like you were showing with your last option, you can, in a sense, create like an auto attendant or a call queue and only have the one person that has access to it be that. And it kind of creates another kind of like a shared line experience, right? Where they can pick a different line with a different ID to it.
That's a really good point. I'll tell you how I use it real world. When Garcia gets mad at me and won't take my call, I call as Lindsay and Aaron, and then he picks their phone up. Oh, hi, Lindsay. Hi, Aaron. And I'm like,
You know, it's only been one time that I ignored her and I said, I'm just not talking to you right now. And next thing you know, I get a call from Aaron and hey, Aaron, how's it going? And boom, it's Carmen. I'm back.
yeah. So
all right. Well, I love both scenarios, guys. That's fantastic.
I'm a delegate for Aaron or Lindsay. So if I have big clients that they're working with to implement things and they call in, I can go ahead and see that they're on the phone, join a call with them if I need to. Here's my mobile phone. I'll just click and open up my mobile Teams client. And you can see on my shared lines, I can see what Aaron and Lindsay are doing, even from my mobile client. And that's very important for me. Get that back out of the way. I'll go into my Teams environment.
I always love to call these
Just very
collaborative
fast.
teams because
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit we use the word teams too much in Teams.
Mhm.
So I always say collaborative teams and channels. That's the way I always describe it. Just to throw that
Love
out
it.
there,
So- I'm in the
That's great.
sales channel and I've got calling. So I've got my call queue, my sales call queue in Teams or in the channel, and it's coming up kind of slow here, but I can see all the people that are in this channel with me. I can see their availability. So we're answering from a call queue. Again, I have the same opportunity to call as myself or call as my channel number. I can see the voicemails that were left. So this allows me to, if I need to work with a team member really quickly while I'm on a call, I've got access to everybody right there. This is kind of fun. I have a texting application within my channel. And it brings up a group SMS texting. I wish it was a little fat on my computer probably. And so I'm going to click here to Sandy. And I don't know if you can see it, if it's too small, but these are from Sandy. These are from people in the channel. So Brandon Bradley responded to Sandy's request, as did I. On Sandy's phone, she doesn't see that it's coming from different people. She sees that it's just coming from the company or from the group from the number that she's talking to. So think people that have trucks out and they're dispatching trucks. Think a shipping department that has lots of trucks coming in and they're making docking appointments, and there's 3 or 4 dispatchers making docking appointments for truckers, landscapers with crews out there, IT help desks doing
There's
different
so many
kinds
good
of
reasons. I love this. This is so just so I'm clear, you just showed basically voice enabled call queues or voice enabled channels. And you just showed now you showed a channel that's got texting enabled as a shared. So not only can you share text, and then take inbound calls and make outbound calls as part of a team, but you can also chat in that team with the members of that group, so that if you're collectively handling a task or collectively handling that group of people, you said that for dispatch as an example. So you've got multiple mediums of communication there in that internal chat, phone, and texting, all in a channel with a specific group of people. Did I get that all right?
Yeah. You got that exactly right. So we've got a trucking company in Texas that a lot of the truckers are independent contractors, and they communicate with the dispatcher and the trucking companies. And so there's 4 or 5 people in the dispatch department, but just everybody can communicate with the truckers. They can see what has been communicated and the whole 9 yards. It just works out really, really well for them.
I can think of a lot of different
Wow.
scenarios where that's going to be used, right? I mean, Doug, what's your scenario that you've seen of this being used pretty successfully?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this: that when it comes to the texting, there's no doubt whether Microsoft likes to. We always like to think of internal instant messaging, but the truth is the world uses text. It's not stopping. Ask any young person; they don't talk anymore; they text, right? You can see 5 kids at a Starbucks. They're not even talking to each other, but they're all having a conversation because they're all on their texting. And so, this is just absolutely powerful how you can bring this in. And again, it's just one more element. You don't have to leave the teams experience, right? And that's the whole foundation of Teams. Is like, here's an app that does so much, and you don't need to leave the footprint of the app. So these are the kind of things that just really just raise the productivity capabilities of the solution. No question of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this texting is also available on my mobile phone, on the mobile phone app. So I can do
I
the
saw
same
that.
thing.
I saw that when you drug it across. I saw texting right at the bottom, and mine is not texting. Mine's got the calls and the chat and the calendar and all that good stuff. And I saw yours come across, and I see your texting organized right there, where you've got right front and center. You've got your texting capable on your mobile device. That's great.
Now, this is texting for my personal phone number. So this texting is for my personal phone number. If I want to see the Teams text that I just showed you, where my channel, I come to sales, down here, texting for business. And that brings up the texting application for a completely different phone number. This is the channel.
Man, that's cool.
And I can see Brandon here. I answered here. Sandy's talking.
I'll tell you how powerful
yeah.
that. Yeah, no, go ahead. I would say the ubiquitous experience is amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say this is essentially a call queue for texting, is what this is. I mean, if you think about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's just in you're again staying in the same application, whether you're on PC and or mobile. It's really what makes this just that experience is exactly the same as you wherever you're at. That's really, really important. I mean, that's easy to train on, easy to deploy, right? Easy to utilize, and again, makes a case for the productivity gains, right?
It sure does. So what else do you think I should show, guys?
How about some 911? What do you think about that? 911?
Yeah, I think you should definitely show some of the 911 and the automatic, the dynamic 911 address identification for sure.
So this is where I'm at right now. If I wanted to pick it up and go, say, over to Doug's house and work out of his house, I could just click here.
Reset.
Oh, now it picked a different address. I don't want to reset.
You want to edit that sucker? There we go.
And
what's Doug's address?
I'm going to be working in Norwalk, Connecticut at 123 Main Street in the bottom office. Now let's hope I don't call 911 because they'll be rushing off to Norwalk, Connecticut.
That's right. In the bottom office. That's so what's cool about that, and the dynamic 911 I like, there's policies inside the admin center where it allows you to identify your corporate office. So you identify your corporate office, and it's identified by several different things, whether it's a MAC, a LAN, an IP address. So you look at that, and you walk into your corporate office, and I believe, and Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it overtakes whatever you have personally set in your 911 location. So Carmen, when you head into the office and you make a 911 call, emergency services and then go to the office because the system already, Teams already knows that you're sitting at the office. That's where you're registering from essentially. Whereas if you've got a location here identified that's custom to you and you're out of the, and you're not in the office, it's dynamic to where whatever you set it to.
Yep. Yeah. So it actually receives an address. And again, it can do it a couple different ways, right? It can come from a network connection. It can even come in some cases from an ISP directly, right? So for example, like if you're working from home, and this is important, by the way, for people to know, because a lot of times your ISPs don't necessarily give you an accurate address, right? It could be close. It might be off by a couple digits or something, but the operating system gains a network identified address, and then of course it passes it along to Teams, right? Now, I always tell this to organizations, well, first thing, 911 is literally a matter of life and death. So you want to make sure that if you're not comfortable doing it, work with a partner that can help you for sure. The other thing is there's some things to understand around inherited addresses from the network, which then become essentially trusted versus unconfirmed addresses versus confirmed entries, right? And all of them can handle the calls to 911 differently. They really can, right? So if you manually put in an address, Teams is trusting that you know where you are. So again, Carmen, you call 911 now, or you can test with 933, right? You will provide the address you put in because you took the steps to manually do it. But if it's getting an address, like for example, it picked up an address from you there and you hadn't confirmed it yet, it doesn't trust that it's accurate. So you'll actually go to a screening center first, right? Which is not a big deal. It's just another step before you get to the local PSAP, right? And so there's just those things to understand when you're doing 911. And it's good for users to understand that. We actually have a whole matrix of all the different scenarios, and I'm probably going on way too long, so I'm sorry. But
this is great. I mean, this is super important, right? When organizations deploy, that's their first question is, how do we handle 911 in Microsoft Teams, right?
Right.
And years ago, you go, you kind of don't really well. It's like, that was the answer. But now it's really, really robust in how it handles all sorts of 911 scenarios.
Yeah. And there's other things it can do too, which is probably really important, is how you can notify. You can create policies. I'll show this in the admin center of how you can notify other people if somebody dials 911. So for example, maybe a manager, maybe even more importantly, like building security, right? You don't want an ambulance. Officer. Yeah, exactly. You don't want an ambulance showing up and nobody else there knows why the ambulance is there, right? So the idea is you can get notifications. You can even bring people in to the 911 call if you want to set it up that way. So, because you don't want the only person knowing about it, the one talking to them. You need to get prepared for emergency services. So
we are definitely going to address that in the TAC, because I think that's a really important component to go over so that organizations understand what that looks like. Carmen, I think it'd be great to show kind of the find me, follow me sort of features in Microsoft Teams, because oftentimes people see this screen, this is their interface right here, and they go, how do you do all the fancy ringing to other devices if you really wanted that? How do you do, something else? Like where are those tools at?
Okay, so I hit down here, custom setup, or I could see here it says that my calls are not forwarded. I could hit there and hit the more settings. I could come up here and hit the settings. So I've got a lot of places. It's kind of designed to wherever you want to default to change it, it's going to work. So I'll just go right here. And this opened up the settings. I could play with the settings for me, my personal settings, for Aaron, and what my delegation stuff is. For Lindsay, I'm the queen of the sales call queue, so I can change the greetings for that if we want to change the greetings without having to put in an IT help desk ticket. IT team loves that. And again, for our sales automated attendant, I can see that my calls are not forwarded. When I receive a call, do I ring anybody else at the same time? Do I also ring a new number or contact, or ring my delegates? So ring me, ring my delegates at the same time. If I don't answer, what do we want it to do? Do not redirect calls. So just let it ring forever till they hang up. Redirect to voicemail, redirect to a new number or contact, redirect to delegates. So I can say, if I don't answer, then flow over. How long do we ring me before we realize I'm not going to answer? I've got all kinds of ringtones I can pick for calls for me, forwarded calls, delegate calls. In managing voicemail, I can change the accent on the greeting that I typed in there. If I want to have an Irish day because it's St. Patrick's Day, she'll say my greeting with an Irish accent. Choose what happens when a caller is redirected to voicemail. I love this. Let the caller record a message. Let the caller record a message or be transferred to someone else. So in this one, you can't hit 0. There's no 0. Just leave a message and hang up. You can hit 0 if you want. Play your greeting and end the call. So if I go on vacation and nobody wants to listen to my greeting, they're not leaving me a bunch of messages thinking she's not getting back with me. She is not very responsive. I can say, on vacation, don't leave a message. Bye-bye.
Catch you later.
Yeah.
I love it.
So here's my custom greeting that I typed in. I think the text-to-speech feature is really neat in here, but I have found out that phonetics counts. Like my last name is spelled E-Y, pronounced I. If I type in Carmen E-Y, that's how she says it. She goes, leave a message for Carmen E-Y, because she doesn't know what to say. So I have to put that extra little E in there. And periods and spaces between sentences count because it becomes more conversational. And then what do I want for my out of office greeting and stuff like that? Manage my delegates, my emergency calling I can manage from here. Is that what you were looking for me to show, Rick?
Yeah.
That's it. You got like all the power like in this one screen.
Yeah, I'm actually going to call out one little thing. It's off topic of voicemail, but notice recognition on the lower left there. One of the things that people can be aware of is they can actually create a voice fingerprint if they want to for identification in conference room meetings and stuff. Again, not voicemail or voice, but a cool feature
right
that we
here.
added. Yeah. So you can actually go in there and essentially record. This has to be turned on by admins, of course, but you can actually record a little voice fingerprint of yourself. So imagine, we have transcription, right, in meetings. Well, if you're in a conference room, how does the conference room know who's talking? Because there's only one speaker. This is how it knows it's you. If you're invited to the meeting and you've recorded your fingerprint, it will actually identify you in the transcription.
Well, knowing that's just made this all worth it for me because I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little off topic, I know, but it kind of goes in line with voice, right?
This
voice services,
one of the
right?
benefits of having Microsoft as your co-host. All right, this is fantastic. Drop a little tidbit on us like that, Doug. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that's great. So yeah, it's your voice-based voice fingerprint. That's amazing.
Yep. Pretty cool stuff.
All right.
Pretty cool stuff. Yeah. It just goes to show you that the development just keeps coming and coming and coming. It's nonstop.
And that's something that I've noticed is it's difficult to stay on top of all the stuff that comes because there's so much stuff that's added continuously.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
Carmen, let's get back to the voicemail for just a second piece, if you don't mind. I'd like to just kind of look at that for just a moment because I want to make sure everyone understands. It's like, you just type in and we take it for granted because we work on this all day, every day, right? So, not having to record a greeting ever again, essentially, for the auto attendants and or the your voicemail, or just being able to log in and type what you want versus having your voicemail call you. That all seems so legacy and cumbersome now, right? Where you're like, let me call my voicemail, let me say what my greeting is, or have my phone call me so I can say what here's my voicemail, versus let's just type it out, set it up, and off you go. So I think that the transcription, or not even transcription, the translation from text to speech that Microsoft provides is just outstanding. And again, the phonetic stuff, I think you do have to take into account, but boy, the voice is great.
I'm going to show you another little known secret.
Okay.
So notice where name and number is there, and you would type someone's name if you were sending them internal, or you type a phone number. Well, what if you only had characters, or I should say the alphabet characters for a phone number? So type in 1-800-FLOWERS.
Oh, look at that.
And now
Oh.
that they have my home address and the 1-800-Flowers,
You're going to get a free
Yeah.
bouquet.
Yeah. So I show that one, and I always say, to the married men in the room, this is one easy to remember, right? Just in case you're in trouble, right? But
I
how
love
cool is
it.
that? You don't even need to know. How many times do advertisers just use text, alphabet characters for their marketing of their phone number, right?
Yep.
You don't even have to know the number.
Yeah, that's I love that. That's pretty
two
cool.
things, Doug.
That's-
Two.
Carmen's like, oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. One more thing, Carmen. I know that you're a delegate for auto attendance of the call queue or the sales queue. I think understanding how remote people or not remote, but basically let's take an example like retail locations. If you've got 100 retail locations, how someone that manages that location can take advantage of updating a call queue for inclement weather or an auto attendant for inclement weather or for auto attendant changes that are required for that. Can you show that?
It's pretty easy. So I come in here and it tells me what the greetings are. If it's the automated attendant, says this is my business hours and I'm saying something polite now, please hold. I could just change it and we're done.
So we're closed today because of inclement weather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, done and done. And that's it. You're just going to the call queue that you manage for, let's say, your location. You're the manager of this, location, and I can just pop in there, make the change, and I'm done. I don't have to put in a ticket with my IT group and call the admin and help me, kind of sort through this.
Yeah. I don't have to record it. I can have a little library of pre-recorded calls or pre-recorded greetings and upload them, or I can type in a greeting.
Man, that's good stuff. Doug,
Yeah.
anything to add to there?
No, that's really cool because that's one of the biggest pain points is like, what if your admin isn't available and you need to change because of something like, there are parts of the country that get some pretty nasty weather at times, right? Now there's a couple things. You can actually do some delegation stuff in the admin center too. But me personally, this is so much easier, right? Just come into the Teams client. Again, one more thing that you don't have to leave the client for.
Yeah, and you don't have to bug the IT department. They're happy about that. And a happy IT department is a good thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, this is super awesome, Carmen. What a nice job in kind of putting the highlights together of what the managing the phone system looks like, or not managing the phone system, but an end user experience. It's the client, it's the Teams client, and it's just a couple of clicks here and there, and you've got access to everything that you need to address your business scenario, whether it's personal and or maybe globally for the business, or personally for the business and the location or something. So that's pretty darn exciting. Well done. Thank you very much, Carmen. I know you've got to go. Any last things?
To go work. No, thanks, Doug. I learned a lot.
I try. I have my moments for sure. No, it's cool. It's like you were saying, there's so many things out there, and Microsoft, I'll admit, doesn't always do the best with letting people know of new stuff, right? And I mean, we publish it, but if you don't go looking for it, sometimes it's hard to find. So that actually, the flowers thing was actually backing from the links, and then it never carried through, and then they finally brought it through recently. So
Oh, good.
That's
cool.
That's exciting. All right. Well, Carmen, I know you got to run. Thank you very much. We'll catch you later.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And then there
All right.
were two, Doug. And then there were two.
Yes.
Okay. So the Teams Admin Center is something that I think organizations that don't necessarily manage the Microsoft Teams component don't really wrap their head around, right? If you're talking to a business leader and you're going, look, it's the Teams Admin Center, it's almost like this big mysterious black hole. You're like, it's the Teams Admin Center, and only the IT of all IT guys is the one who controls it and stuff like that. So why don't you kind of let familiarize our audience with what does the Teams Admin Center really look like, and is it difficult to manage and maintain? What can you accomplish in there? What can you do? I know it's everything, but what do you think?
Yeah, I will. I am absolutely willing. Let's bring it up. I'll walk you through. It's actually incredibly easy. Anybody who comes from the voice background and has managed PBXs in the past will realize that, the Teams Admin Center is almost scary how easy it is to administer, especially things like building auto attendants and call queues. It's click through. You don't have to know PowerShell. There are some things that obviously PowerShell can benefit, but really, when Microsoft developed Teams from the ground up, they really did it in the intent of a point-and-click management GUI, and that's what we have today.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
I am sharing my screen. I think you should be able to
Oh,
publish
let
it. I
me-
hope.
Yep. Oh, here we go. There it is.
All right, there we are. Okay, awesome. Let's. I got 30 minutes, so
You got
keep
it.
me honest here because I talk a lot. So
All right.
I'm going to start first with, of course, how do you get here? Of course, admin.teams.microsoft.com. You can always get here direct. Of course, if you are in a regular M365 admin center, of course, you can always go to the Teams admin center down under the admin center collection, right? So it's always good to know how to get here. And then essentially, what do you get when you get here? Well, we've been doing a lot of work where we kind of have this landing page dashboard, right? And it's just intended to just give some useful information that the administrator may want to have. You see here, it's got some kind of news feeds that flow across. This is where often Microsoft will kind of push some new things to be aware of. Of course, I can change these. I can move these around. I can grab them and put them in different places if I want to, right? And again, it's very customizable. I can go in and fully edit it. So I can put the panels I want here. I won't go through all the different ones. You can see some of them, this demo tenant, I don't even have stuff configured, right? But, it's just a quick way to give you some information you want to know, right? Now, as far as what's going on actually inside the admin center from a configuration of the environment, it's all pretty much based on the left-hand menu screen here. We've got a bunch of these carrots. Every one of these, they seem, as you'll notice as I go through, they definitely group things based on the core function of the application, right? So for example, Teams, right? Well, this is where you can manage and control and set policies around what I call those collaborative teams and channels, right? You can come in here, you can start managing existing teams, you can create teams, you can create templates, associate policies. And again, I won't go through all this because I could spend a lot of time in this, but this is really kind of like from an administrator standpoint, you can really get a handle on what's going on. You can see what's going on. One of the things organizations worry about is team sprawl, right? Because they worry if they allow people to make teams, they're just going to start making them out of control, and then you get waste of teams. Well, from an administrator standpoint, you can kind of help police it. Of course, you can also lock this down, so you have to request teams, right? And so once you do that, of course, you have your policies, you can create templates, and so on and so forth. It's just a great way for administrators to come in here and essentially decide what options or what experiences they want to provide to their users when we're talking about those collaborative spaces of teams, right?
Right.
So, and again, of course, this ties in with the phone stuff you just saw with those call queues and how you can put call queues inside of these collaborative teams. It almost starts to create, and I'm going to be very cautious here when I say this, it starts to create kind of a low-level contact center experience, right? You start to kind of get this collection of people in the call queue, and now they can work inside the same environment to manage those calls. And that's
all together.
About yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Well,
exactly.
let me mention one thing too, right? Because I actually just went through this where I requested IT to create teams for me. This is not just internal. Like you can invite people external to your team so that you can all be in a collaborative environment, right? Working with as a group, right? If you're working on a project together, you can invite other people to live in your team's collaboration team. Whew, did I get that right?
The collaborative team. Yeah, exactly. So it's not just your organization anymore. You can bring in people from the outside. Actually, the new Teams client, which is what we were seeing in the demo there, the new Teams client handles multiple Teams environments when you're connecting to them a lot better. It's a lot faster, right? It's a better experience. So that's one of the benefits. If you haven't switched over, you're going to be switching over soon because that deadline's coming. I think it's March, if I'm correct. But definitely the new Teams client is awesome. It's faster. It uses less resources on the device. So it's a great experience. Awesome. Okay.
New Teams ASAP.
Yeah, definitely. Users, well, you can imagine what this is, right? This is your user environment. These are the people that are using your Teams experience, right? Both internal and external guest access, right? Keep in mind, we've got a couple different approaches. We have guest access and we have external access. It's important to understand the difference of those. External access is what we often used to describe as federation, the ability to communicate one-on-one with people outside. It's also, you'll notice down here, Skype users, right? So those people that still use Skype, it's still out there. Matter of fact, there's a lot of Teams features in Skype now. But for those people that are just on the using Skype as their kind of everyday chat and phone mechanism, you can absolutely communicate with those people, right? And then of
Doug,
course, guest access. Yes.
How does federation work though? Because I'll tell you what, you hear federation and it seems like some big scary thing when you're talking about federation like this, again, this mysterious way to do something and connect organizations together. How does it work really?
Yeah, really all it is essentially, and keep in mind, there is a difference between guest access and external access, or what we used to call federation. Guest access is for those collaborative teams, right? You allow a guest in. Think about it this way. You have an office. You allow a guest to come in the office to work with you. That's what guest access does for collaborative teams and channels. External access, federation, is creating a secure connection one-on-one to a user outside of your organization. So let's say, for example, you want to communicate with another company. You're working with a customer of yours. Rather than calling them, they use Teams. You use Teams. You can just put probably their email address, their SIP address essentially in. Once it creates that secure handshake, you can now instant message with them. You can even call them directly, right? So it opens a line of communication one-on-one outside of the organization, right? And like I was saying, it's not even just other business units that are using Teams. You can actually do it with personal users on Skype, and you can manage this.
That's so cool, because if you think about if you think about providing customer service to someone, let's just say you've got a enterprise group that handles, I've got 20 big customers that I handle. Let's just say I'm a sales engineer or a solutions engineer or a service provider, or the customer service of a group like that, and I can essentially put their key individuals that need to correspond with me into a personal sort of team where I can monitor and manage any support requirements. Right. I mean, just direct access to what they need. If they need access to me, as an example, and we're in a team together, I could see how you can just go create these names for companies that you want to provide, support to like that. That's fantastic. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And you can control it as an administrator, right? You can decide you only want to allow this to certain organizations. Now, there's some things to be aware of with this, right? As soon as you select a certain domain, you instantly block every other domain on the planet, right? So if I say I'm going to allow communication with Microsoft.com, then guess what? Anybody who's not Microsoft.com, you have blocked them.
Block them out of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing goes, right? If you block a specific one, that only blocks that one. Everybody else still has open. And again, it's that open federation where the initial contact has to be made. You have to accept that contact. That creates the secure handshake and the communication. So I've seen some customers have some challenges where they're like, oh, we only want to communicate with a couple of our partners, and they didn't realize that they shut off communication to every other domain on the planet, right? So just some things to be aware of, right? But otherwise, super powerful, right? Super powerful. I use it every day. It's absolutely amazing. So the next one, whoops, I didn't mean to click that. Teams devices. All right. So this is where you manage all of your devices. By the way, very conveniently, we now include access to the store right here. So this is through one of our partners. If you want to buy hardware, you can come to here. What I like to tell people is you don't have to buy from here, but you know what? This is a great place to see all the available devices that work with Teams, right? Cameras, room system, headsets, whatever the case may be. This is the place to go. You'll see all the stuff here. It's just a great library to understand what options you have.
Yep.
And again, if you want to, you can buy from here. But more importantly, this is also the section where you start to manage elements, right? So you'll see here, we've got a couple room systems. They're not even turned on, right? But you can start to manage your room systems, whether they're Android or Windows. Keep in mind, we also have another portal for room system management with the Pro license, but surfaces. And then, of course, when you start to get into the physical phones, Teams displays, which is kind of another form of a phone in a sense, and even those SIP devices, right? And if you're not familiar, we allow SIP endpoints to register against Teams, right? You can allow that. So a generic SIP phone, there are certain models we support. We even support ATAs now when you're trying to get those pesky analog lines in when you need them, things like that. Paging systems also have some SIP options. And so now you can bring those devices in much easier than you could in the past. In the past, you needed an SBC. It was it was more complex. Now you can just literally register a SIP device against a user account.
I'm gonna
Really awesome.
I'm gonna stop you for just a second because I'm gonna give
Yeah.
you a quick scenario that we literally were going through right now. There's, we've deployed SIP devices that, the audio codes as an example is a device that's certified. We use that regularly and use it very successfully, and that does just register right up to Teams. In a scenario recently, in fact, I was on a chat where I was kind of giving someone some support on what we're doing here. We're replacing a Cisco platform. It's like there's 1,000 analog lines maybe at a bunch of different locations, and they've got a bunch of the Cisco VGs connected to Call Manager. They're looking to groom those off of Call Manager and get rid of Call Manager entirely, and groom those onto the Cube directly, and then connect the Cube up to Teams. And we'll do the tile plan in between the two so that they can still have a door actuator, as an example, that launches off of a Teams, let's say, console at the reception desk, and then open one that's sitting on an ATA, as an example. Open the gate, open the door, etc. So great ways for you to access and leave components in place that you really don't want to swap out if you don't need to just yet, right? If you want to eke out every bit of value in an ATA and or a Cube, as an example, you can certainly do that. But it's so nice and convenient that you can just, you can register up ATAs today and just address those overhead pagers, door actuators, all sorts of different components connected to analog lines. So it's really convenient to be able to do it either way like that.
Yeah, they just become another Teams account, really. It's just another Teams user. The big thing I like to stress about the SIP devices is, as you're saying, somebody coming from, say, a Cisco wants to go to Teams. They want to get to a headset world, right? The world is, and a lot of this was thanks to COVID, right? We were all shoved at home. So suddenly now people are a lot more comfortable with headsets. But I would say before the pandemic, there was definitely a pretty solid interest in keeping physical phones for people. It's a comfort element. They're just used to it, right? They like the phone on the desk. We also understand that one of the biggest expenses of a new phone system is the physical hardware of phones. I mean, some of these phones are $400 or $500 a piece, right? So organizations start to get like, ooh, our users want to keep phones. We don't want to take on that expense. So it's a great way to bridge that journey to get off like a legacy Cisco, leverage those phones with Teams, right? And then, of course, hope the journey goes where people get comfortable with Teams and they start to gravitate towards headsets, right? So it's a great.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah,
I like the way you said that, where it bridges the gap, right? You're trying to get to that headset environment, and you got a huge investment. Let's say you've got thousands, tens of thousands of phones, or 20,000 phones, or 10,000 phones. So you've got a massive investment in physical devices, and being able to register those up to Teams, it makes a lot of sense to help organizations mitigate the cost of net new phones across the board.
It does. I've literally talked to customers that have bought phones for everybody because that's what they thought they wanted, and then 6 months, a year later, they started that journey. People got comfortable with Teams, and now they got a closet of phones, right? And so we definitely understand that there's always going to be people that like phones, and that's awesome. We have those options. And there's going to be people that are going to gravitate towards headsets, especially because of the laptop portability of it. And so it's just a nice way to bridge that gap and bridge that journey. So that's why I always like to mention it. Awesome. All right. Teams apps. Okay. Let's talk about this section. Well, what are Teams apps? Well, those are all the things that are inside the Teams client, right? Actually, when we were seeing the phone experience earlier, whoops, sorry about that. that was actually the phone app, right? So these are all apps that are inside of this. Now, what is the app library? Well, these are third-party applications, or they could even be your own custom-made applications. You can go and use things like Power Apps and make your own apps for Teams, right? If you have some type of interface or something you want to do, sky's the limit, right? This is your library. This is the section where you can decide what apps you want to allow people to use. Maybe you just want to have open reign. Anybody can use any app they want. Maybe you're like, no, we only want certain approved apps allowed in Teams. And the other thing that was touched base on in the meeting, you can actually start to design what apps are default in the client, both mobile and the desktop app, right? So if you always wonder why you log into Teams and why do I have certain apps on the side, I didn't put them there. Your administrators are probably making those decisions, right? And again, it's up to you. Want to allow the customer or the end user to customize it or not. The idea is here's your default apps by default that come in the client. So it's pretty cool. It's just a customization thing, right?
Yep.
So, yep. Okay, meetings. Guess what this section's about? Meetings, right? Pretty straightforward. Meetings are, they've been around forever. Obviously, Teams does meetings fantastic. We love it. You can do audio conferencing bridges, of course. Obviously, you can use Operator Connect vendors too. You can use Microsoft's numbers. There's all sorts of options here. This is just your library of conference numbers. That's all this is, right? And then you can decide default ones. By the way, one of the things you can do now is you can start to customize multiple numbers being available. That was one thing we heard a lot from customers. Why is there only one number present, or maybe one toll number, one toll-free number? What if we want to list out 4 numbers? Well, you can start to do that now with policies and such, right? So that is now available. The other thing, and again, I won't go through a lot of this. It's just essentially where you can control your meeting experience and what's allowed in the meetings. You kind of jump into some of these really quick, and you can see you can start to kind of predefine the meeting experience if you want. Do you want to allow channel scheduling of meetings or not? If you've ever seen it, sometimes when you're in Teams channels, there's the ability to generate a meeting right from there. Maybe you don't want to allow that, right? Maybe you don't want to allow meeting registrations, right? With like webinars, for example. It's just, this is the way you can start to control stuff. By the way, you will notice this is where we start to see the premium button start to light up in here. There is a license called Teams Premium that has some advanced webinar and meeting functionality along with some other stuff. If you see the button, you need the license for the user to benefit from that feature, right? So just something to
Let's talk about that for just a minute, Doug. The difference between what does Premium provide? You said webinar stuff. Let's just what else? What does Premium provide over the normal licenses there?
So Teams Premium does a few things. One of the popular things, of course, we've got this AI revolution going on. Everybody's talking about AI. It provides meeting recap, AI-generated meeting recap at the end of a meeting. So if you've recorded a meeting, when the recording gets compiled and streamed, the AI engine will scan the meeting recording, essentially the transcription, and it will provide meeting notes. So AI-generated meeting notes, that's a popular one. Another thing, when we talk about webinars, there's a couple key things it'll do in meetings and webinars. One is it creates a virtual green room inside of webinars. The green room is nothing more than the organizers of the meeting. They can sit there and prepare before they send the meeting live. So it's kind of just a little prep zone before the meeting goes live. It also does one thing that's really, really cool that was definitely needed. You can now control the content that the audience sees. Not a whole lot different than what we're in right now, right? So for example, Rick decides to publish my desktop when it's ready, move our video to the side and whatnot. Well, you can actually do that now in Teams meetings with Teams Premium, right? You can actually control the experience of what the user sees versus typically Teams meetings, the audience or the user that's watching the meeting can kind of decide their own experience. They can pin someone's video, they can focus on content, things like that. They can turn off incoming video if they find it a distraction. Well, with the premium license, you can actually control that experience to make sure the audience sees what you want them to see. And then there's a few other things. I could probably talk an hour about premium. It also brings in some security stuff. You can start to make meeting templates, right? So let's say you want predefined meeting experiences so that when somebody's generating a meeting, they pick the template and it automatically sets that. It also, from an administration standpoint, can let you decide which features you want a user to be able to adjust or not adjust in a meeting, right? So you might make a template, and one of the templates might be the audience is muted, but you want to allow that person to flip it on or off during the meeting. Well, you can decide that. You can also make it locked and hidden, and they have no control of that feature. So there's things like that you can do with Premium, end-to-end encryption, watermarking. So now you can start to bring some really high-end security stuff into the meeting.
Oh yeah.
When you start doing watermarking or end-to-end encryption, we can't even record the meeting anymore because it's considered a high level of security. Microsoft can't even see the media from that standpoint. So all we're doing is getting messaging to understand it's going well.
Question
So
on the
stuff
webinar
like-
piece. Question on the webinar
Yeah.
piece. Does it also come with like a registration sort of process so that you can register people
does.
for your webinar? Yeah.
It does. Yeah, that's really kind of the big difference between a standard Teams meeting. I mean, there's other elements, but the look and feel of a webinar is very similar to a standard collaborative meeting in Teams, but it has a registration portal that can be customized. By the way, when you have Premium, you can start to even customize the email announcements, send out reminders. It gives you a little more control than just the one, like, hey, you registered for your meeting, here's your calendar placeholder, right? And so it gives you a little more controls around the actual registration of the event and whatnot. The other thing Webinar does, and so does Town Hall, by the way, that's the latest meeting kind of experience we released, is you can now have control over the end recording that gets published to the audience, right? And so typically you record a meeting, anybody in the meeting might have access to the recording, it gets the raw recording, right? Well, what if you're doing a webinar and something happens during the webinar, somebody accidentally shares something like confidential information on the screen they didn't mean to or something? Well, after the webinar is done and the recording is compiled, you can actually go into Clipchamp. You can edit that video, take out sections, put title cards in, whatever you want to do, right? And then you republish it. And then when you republish it is when the audience actually sees the recording. So it's a pretty cool feature. Okay. And I want to make sure I'm running out of time here. You can see there's so much to talk about from the portal. So messaging, I won't spend a whole lot of time on messaging. Where is it here? Here we go. Because it's just simply messaging policies. This is just basically your instant messaging. What do you want to do? What do you want to allow people to do? Things like that, right? So again, there's a lot of settings in here. This is just something that administrators will decide. Maybe you don't want people using Giphies or something like that, right? Reporting inappropriate content. Look at this. Maybe people are not talking so nice to one another. It's good to know that kind of stuff. So you start to get some of the even like compliance capabilities to just make sure that everybody's being appropriate. Voice. Well, you know why we're here. We're talking voice, right? Here is all of your PBX control settings, right? Number management, right? Whether it's from Microsoft or Operator Connect vendors, they're in here. They come in and they flow into here, right? If you're using direct routing, it's still used. It's not as popular. Your Operator Connect vendors are there. And then, of course, your calling policies, right? This is where you can start to kind of provide the experience you want to your users on how they're calling, right? Music on hold, busy on busy. Do you want to allow web calling? Just stuff like that. Again, I could spend a whole hour probably in here, but this is really your configuration of your phone system. And yes, earlier we were talking about auto attendants and call queues. Here's where you do those, right? You can set up your auto attendants. It's completely, you can see here, we kind of made like a fake car dealership, right? Where we literally have a nice call flow going through. You'll see here, you can have uploaded files or just have, I used to say Cortana because it sounded like Cortana, but I guess we don't say Cortana anymore. We just say the Teams attendant can talk. And then of course you can click your menu options or whatnot, right? And by the way, there's a lot of stuff you can pick from when it comes to the menu options. Obviously, send to an operator, a person. A voice app is an auto attendant or call queue. Send to voicemail, external, or you can just play announcements. How cool is that? You can literally just play an announcement based on, whatever. Somebody selects something, you can just play the announcement and hang up on them. So it's pretty cool stuff.
And it's audio and push button, right? I mean, it's like you just say pray or say or press one, right?
We do. Yep, we do. Yeah, and so yeah, we definitely have some low-level IVR. What I would say low-level IVR, it doesn't do everything with voice, but you can even search the gal for somebody, right? If I know I need to talk to Rick Garcia, I don't know his number, but I hit the company auto attendant, I can say your name. If it's allowed to let it happen, it'll actually find you and then send me to you. So it's pretty cool. And
Awesome.
by the way, you can control that. I always use the joke at Microsoft. Sadia probably doesn't want random auto attendant calls hitting his desk, right? So he's probably blocked from that. But you can do that kind of stuff. Call queues, just as simple to set up. This is what I like to say our approach to a hunt group, really, is kind of the way I describe it. Of course, you can decide whether you want to call outbound. That's the caller ID option, right? And then, of course, really it just comes down to first touch greeting, what music on hold. I would say probably change the default music on hold. Microsoft probably, in my opinion, should probably update it. It's been the same for quite a while. But then, of course, when it comes down to how you deliver the calls, and here's the cool part. If you pick a team, right, which then allows you to select a channel, then you'll see what we saw earlier, where you get that calling experience right inside the channel. That's how you do this. So, and then the rest of them is just, how long, the call is delivered. Do you want any exception? By the way, remember I had mentioned you can give some delegate access here for people to actually administer the call queue and auto attendance. This is that authorized user window. The client experience you saw earlier is even easier, right? This does give you probably a little more control, but most of the time it's just the announcements that people are trying to handle, right? Let's go. We've only got a couple minutes. Let me just show one thing, because we did spend a little bit of time about 911.
Yep.
Let me cancel out of here. This is really where you start to get involved with the 911 stuff, the emergency addresses. This, of course, is all of your addresses inside of, we don't have any here, unfortunately, but any building that you have, you would have the address here. By the way, once you create a building, you can create literally an infinite level of places in that. When I say places, it could be a conference room, could be a quadrant, it could be a floor, it could be a broom closet, whatever you want it to be. And then, of course, you can go in and start to associate the network locations, whether it's literally subnets, it can be wireless access points. You can literally be physical ports on switches if you have that technology, and you still physically run cables. All of that stuff can be done, and so that all comes together so that when a user dials 911, anything that they can get from the network can help confirm the address. And if it's a trusted address that's already entered here, they will automatically go to the local PSAP, right? If it's not, then of course there could be screening or confirmation required. Again, maybe we have one of these calls on 911 as a whole. Might be.
No, I did for sure. But let's show the audience, Doug, how we can include somebody else when they're calling. Let's say if they call 911, how do we include somebody? Let's see if we can quickly show that.
Yeah,
and I've got one more for you if we can get there.
Okay, let's see if I can get my emergency policies to load here.
The other one is just going to be integrations. Okay, I want to talk about integrations for a hot second after this, and then we'll call it good.
Come on, load up. Here it comes. Okay. Looks like my tenant timed out here. Okay, emergency policies. So I'll show you emergency policies. This one, a lot of people think you come to emergency policies to set up 911. No, actually what you do here is literally what we're talking about. Who do you notify in the event of somebody calling 911? And by the way, you can make a bunch of these policies. You can assign them to different users or groups. The reason being is you might want different handling based on different people, based on different locations or where the people are at, so on and so forth. It can be an urgent notification. This is like one of those exclamation point IMs, like, hey, somebody's calling 911, or this person's on the phone with 911, or like what I like, you can literally bring the person into the call, right? And you can have more than one person, by the way. You can have a group of people here, right? So you could have the security desk, and then maybe somebody from HR, and I don't know, you could have an organizational head or something like that. The idea is you want to make sure when that ambulance shows up, people are expecting it and they know where to send the people, right? Because there's nothing worse than somebody needs help and they don't know where to go. right? And
Yep.
that's the point of this. So
Exactly. Love it. Now let's talk about integrations. And we got one more minute here, and we'll, what kind of integrations are out of the box here, Doug? When you talk about maybe Salesforce integration, screen pops, things like that, how easy is that to configure?
it's actually incredibly easy. First thing, when it comes to the apps, there's the library of apps. A lot of third-party vendors already have the apps that they develop for the experience they want, right? That's the beauty of kind of the app library. So for example, there's a Salesforce app in here, right? And so you can go and leverage this, log into the Salesforce account, and you get that experience that they've engineered right inside of Teams. Now, of course, you can always take that further because everybody uses like REST APIs and whatnot, and you can even start to integrate things where you start to get screen pop, and you get a call inside of Teams, and the Salesforce browser on your desktop will bring up from information based on that caller ID. It's super easy to do. It really is, right? And every major vendor out there, when I say vendor, like communication and CRM style solution,
Right.
just they integrate so easily with Microsoft because they get it that Teams has just completely become a verb inside of the workplace. Everybody, you just say Microsoft Teams and they know exactly what we're here. And so it really creates a very easy way to do it. And then of course, and we say this all the time at Microsoft, you can probably do almost anything you want to. It just depends how far you want to take it, right? Because there's so many APIs that Microsoft allow inside of our ecosystems. You can essentially tie in almost anything, right? Sometimes you have to bridge Azure Communication Services in the middle, but
Yep.
still, once you bring that in, sky's the limit. You can really do almost anything.
Love it. That's awesome. I mean, Doug, man, you power through. You taking a breath yet? You good? You all right?
I'm good. I'm good.
That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. What you power through the whole TAC for us in some pretty good detail in some places. So thank you very much. That was amazing, Carmen. I want to say thank you to her for allowing some of her time to show us the end user experience and some of the favorite features there. We promised a full on demo today of what Microsoft Teams looks like, and that's the end user experience and the TAC admin. So both people in an organization can say, okay, that's how I manage it. Okay, this is how I use it. This is cool. Thank you so much for being here, Doug. We appreciate the presence and your couple of tips. I think Carmen said she pulled away a couple of tips that weren't common knowledge for us. So the little secret Microsoft handshake thing that we've got going on, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for jumping on and giving us the tips and tricks and the TAC. So
my pleasure. Thanks so much. I love coming here.
That's excellent. All right. Well, everyone, that's episode 50. It was a banger. There's so much information here. This is one to keep. If you stumble across this, store it, save it, whatever, because it was a whole sort of slew of information packed into an hour. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. That's episode 50. Doug, we'll catch you later next time. Thanks so much, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. There